Pain is not the end, it is the beginning of healing. Every one of us has felt the weight of a broken heart at some point in our lives. We've been let down by people we trusted, hurt by words that cut too deep, and left alone in moments when we needed someone the most. In those moments, the world seems silent, and the heart feels too heavy to carry. But do you know what that pain truly is? It is not the end of your story. It is Allah calling you back to Him, softly but powerfully. That ache inside your chest is not a sign of destruction. It is a sign that Allah is preparing to rebuild you in a way that the world could never do. Sometimes Allah allows your heart to break not because He wants to punish you, but because He wants to redirect you. He removes the temporary so you can discover the eternal. You may think something was taken from you, but in truth, something greater is being prepared for you. The tears you shed are not wasted. Every tear that falls is seen, counted, and recorded by the one who never overlooks his servants. You may feel invisible to people, but you are never invisible to Allah. When the heart breaks, the noise of the world fades, and suddenly, the whispers of the soul become clearer. You start to realize that no person, no success, no moment of worldly joy could ever fill the emptiness that only Allah can fill. That pain becomes the turning point, the moment where you stop chasing temporary healers and start running toward the eternal healer. We often want life to be smooth, but the truth is, comfort can make us forget. It's in hardship that remembrance becomes strongest. Allah brings us to our knees so that we may learn how to rise again, not with arrogance, but with humility and faith. Sometimes we say, "Why me? Why did I lose that person? Why did I face this betrayal? Why did my plans fall apart when I gave everything?" But what if the answer is not punishment, it's protection? What if Allah removed what you loved because He knew it would harm you? What if that heartbreak was the barrier that saved your soul? We see only what is in front of us, but Allah sees beyond the horizon. He knows what we need even when we can't understand it. He knows which pain will purify and which loss will lift us to a place of greater closeness to Him. And so, when you feel your heart breaking, remember you are not being abandoned, you are being rebuilt. You are being shaped into someone who can handle what lies ahead. The most beautiful flowers only grow after they have been buried in darkness. The seed must break before it can bloom. Likewise, your heart must go through pain before it can open fully to the light of faith. Allah never wastes a wound. He never sends you pain without purpose. Every difficulty is a lesson, every loss a mercy, and every heartbreak a doorway to something more beautiful. But healing doesn't come instantly. It's a process, a journey that requires patience and surrender. You can't rush it. You can't demand that the heart forget in a day what it has held for years. Healing begins the moment you stop fighting the pain and start accepting it as part of your growth. Allah says in the Quran, indeed, with hardship comes ease. He didn't say after hardship, He said with it. That means even in your darkest moments, ease is already there, quietly unfolding, waiting for you to notice. You may not see it yet, but one day you'll look back and realize that the very moment you thought you were falling apart was the moment Allah was putting you back together. We live in a world that tells us to hide our pain, to mask our heartbreak with distractions and fake smiles. But true healing doesn't happen through avoidance. It happens through connection to Allah. When you pray while your heart is breaking, that prayer carries a sincerity that words alone can't capture. When you cry in sujud and your forehead touches the ground, and your tears mix with your whispers to Allah, that's when the soul begins to mend. The heart heals not through escape, but through surrender. Don't think your sadness means you are weak. The prophets themselves felt pain. They wept, they grieved, they prayed through the deepest darkness, and yet they found strength not in avoiding pain, but in embracing it as a part of Allah's plan. Yusuf was betrayed by his brothers, thrown into a well, sold as a slave, and imprisoned, yet his story ends in honor and wisdom. Maryam cried out in labor alone beneath a palm tree, and in that moment of isolation, Allah sent her comfort and provision. Every broken heart in the stories of the righteous became the foundation for their greatest spiritual growth. When you remember this, your perspective changes. You begin to see pain not as a punishment, but as purification. You stop asking, "Why me?" and start saying, "Ya Allah, guide me through this." That shift of mindset is where the true healing begins. The moment you trust that your heartbreak is part of Allah's design, the burden starts to lighten. You start to see beauty even in loss. You start to thank Allah even for the tears, because deep down you realize that every hardship is shaping you into someone who depends less on people and more on Him. And when you finally reach that point of surrender, when you say, "Ya Allah, I can't, but you can," that's when peace returns. It's not the peace of everything being fixed, but the peace of knowing you are held, guided, and cared for. That is the kind of peace no worldly comfort can replace. Allah takes your broken heart and gives you something stronger. A heart that knows how to trust, how to endure, and how to love for His sake. So don't run from your pain. Don't bury it under noise or distraction. Sit with it, feel it, and then lift it up to Allah in prayer. Let your heart speak, because Allah listens even when you cannot find the words. Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means learning to see the wound as a place where light enters. It means realizing that the same heart that was once shattered can now beat with purpose and gratitude. Every heartbreak is an invitation to return, to reflect, to renew. And those who answer that invitation discover something extraordinary. That the closer you are to breaking, the closer you are to being rebuilt by the one who knows your heart better than you do. You may not understand why this pain was written for you, but one day you will look back and thank Allah for it. Because without that heartbreak, you would never have known the sweetness of His healing. And that is when you will finally understand pain was never the end. It was always the beginning of something greater. When the heart breaks, it feels as though the world stops moving. You look around and everything seems to carry on, people smiling, laughing, living, yet within you, there is a silence so heavy that it almost drowns you. In those moments, it's easy to believe that you've been left alone, that no one understands, and that even Allah has turned away. But that's the illusion of pain. It blinds you to the reality that when everyone else walks away, Allah stays. When every door closes, His door remains open. When no one listens, He listens. And when your heart aches with the weight of sorrow, He is closer than your very heartbeat. There are moments in life when you feel unseen. You've poured your heart out to someone, hoping they'll understand, and yet their response leaves you even more broken. You've given your trust, only to be betrayed. You've been there for others, only to be forgotten when it was your turn to be heard. And in that quiet disappointment, something inside you whispers, no one really cares. But it is in those very moments that Allah wants you to realize you were never meant to lean fully on creation. Because creation will fail you, but the Creator never will. He takes away your reliance on people, so you can return to reliance on Him alone. When you lose someone you love, or when your heart is shattered by the weight of expectations unmet, remember that Allah sees your pain in its purest form. Others may only see your smile, but Allah knows what you hide behind it. He knows the nights you cried yourself to sleep. He knows the prayers you whispered in exhaustion. He knows the things you don't have the courage to tell anyone. That's why He says, asterisk, and we are closer to Him than His jugular vein. Asterisk, His closeness is not only a fact of existence, it's a source of comfort. When your heart is too heavy to speak, He hears the silence between your sobs. Often, we think being broken is a sign of weakness, but in the sight of Allah, a broken heart that turns to Him is stronger than a proud one that doesn't. The broken-hearted are among His most beloved servants because they come to Him not with arrogance, but with desperation, humility, and truth. They don't pretend anymore, they simply surrender. That's why the Prophet said, Allah is near to the broken-hearted, because in that brokenness lies sincerity. There are moments when your pain itself becomes a form of worship, when your tears are a kind of Dhikr, and your silence is a conversation with your Lord. When everyone walks away, Allah stays. That's not a poetic line, it's a reality of faith. Sometimes Allah removes people from your life because they were blocking your view of Him. You loved them so deeply that you forgot who gave you the capacity to love in the first place. You sought comfort in them more than you sought comfort in your prayers. So Allah, out of His mercy, removes the distraction. It hurts at first, yes, but that pain becomes the bridge back to Him. You might ask, if He loves me, why would He let me hurt this much? And the answer is because sometimes pain is the only language the soul understands when it has strayed too far. When you finally realize that people cannot fill the emptiness in your chest, you begin to experience what real peace feels like, the peace that comes from knowing Allah is enough. You stop chasing validation from others. You stop waiting for someone to fix you. And you start turning your brokenness into a means of connection with the one who never breaks you. It is a beautiful transformation when your heartbreak becomes your prayer mat, when your tears become your tasbih, and when your loneliness becomes your greatest form of remembrance. There's something incredibly powerful about a person who has been broken and yet chooses to stand again for the sake of Allah. They've seen the darkness of despair, but they've also tasted the sweetness of surrender. They know that the world can wound, but Allah can heal. They've learned that the best place to rest their heart is not in the hands of people, but in the hands of the one who created it. Such a person becomes unshakable not because life stops being painful, but because they now understand who truly carries them through it. Sometimes we seek healing in the wrong places. We run to distractions, to noise, to people, to moments of escape, hoping that something temporary will numb what's eternal. But nothing works, because the heart that was created by Allah can only be healed by Allah. No amount of laughter, entertainment, or worldly success can fill the emptiness that only His remembrance can soothe. That's why when you sit alone and you quietly say, "Ya Allah, I need you," you feel something shift. The burden lifts, even if just slightly, and that's not an illusion, that's His mercy touching your heart. Healing comes when you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is Allah trying to teach me through this?" Every test, every heartbreak, every loss carries a message. Maybe Allah wants you to realize your worth is not tied to people's opinions. Maybe He wants you to slow down and reconnect with your faith. Maybe He's removing something from your life to make space for something far better. When you start seeing life through the lens of divine wisdom, even pain becomes purposeful. You begin to recognize that Allah's delays are not denials, they're preparations. When you remember Allah during heartbreak, you're not just comforting yourself, you're aligning your soul with truth. The truth that this world was never meant to be perfect. The truth that people are flawed and limited, but Allah's mercy is boundless. The truth that every hardship carries within it the seed of ease. You start to understand that peace is not found when everything around you is calm. Peace is found when your heart trusts Allah even in the storm. If you've ever been in a place where your heart hurt so much that you couldn't even make dua properly, where all you could do was cry, know that even those tears were heard. Allah doesn't need eloquence. He needs sincerity. He doesn't need you to come to Him with perfect words, just come to Him with a genuine heart. The beauty of being broken is that your defenses fall, your pride disappears, and your heart becomes raw and real. And that's when Allah's mercy enters most easily through the cracks in your heart. So if you feel abandoned, know this, you are not alone. The world may have turned its back, but Allah never did. He has been there in every silent tear, every unanswered prayer, every sleepless night. Sometimes He hides His presence just enough for you to seek Him. but He never leaves. He never forgets. He never overlooks. Your pain is seen, your patience is recorded, and your faith, even if trembling, is valued beyond what you can imagine. You may think you've lost everything, but if you've found Allah in the process, then you've gained more than what was taken. Because when Allah stays, you realize you never truly lost. You simply discovered that His companionship is all you ever needed. And that realization, that moment when your heart finally feels content in His presence, is the truest form of healing there is. You're not tired, you've just lost discipline. That's a statement many of us hesitate to accept, but deep down, we know it's true. Life feels exhausting not because we're physically incapable, but because our hearts and minds have drifted away from order, purpose, and connection with Allah. When discipline fades, so does our energy. When the soul loses structure, the body follows. It's not always the workload that breaks you, it's the lack of consistency, the absence of spiritual focus, and the way we let our emotions control our actions. There was a time when you woke up with clarity, you prayed on time, you had goals, routines, and gratitude, and then slowly the habits faded. One missed Fajr became two, one skipped plan turned into a week of neglect, and before long you began saying, "I'm tired." But the truth is, you're not truly tired, you're spiritually misaligned. Your energy is leaking from inconsistency. The body is designed to function under discipline, just as the heart is designed to rest in remembrance. When either is neglected, everything starts to feel heavy. We often misunderstand what discipline really is. People think discipline is about strictness, about denying joy, or pushing yourself until you burn out. But in truth, discipline is an act of mercy. It's the structure that allows your soul to breathe. It's the rhythm that gives meaning to your days. Without it, life becomes a blur, reactive instead of intentional. And the most dangerous thing about losing discipline is that it doesn't happen overnight. It happens quietly through small compromises. You tell yourself, just today, I'll skip it. And that small act becomes a habit. Then suddenly, you look around and wonder why everything feels so out of balance. The Prophet showed us that discipline is not harshness, it's devotion. His life was built around prayer, service, reflection, and purpose. His days had meaning because they revolved around Allah. Every moment was guided, not wasted. When he prayed, he was fully present. When he rested for the sake of gaining strength to serve again. That is true discipline, knowing that every act, no matter how small, can be tied to a greater purpose. When we lose that sense of purpose, we confuse laziness with fatigue and distraction with rest. The problem with many of us today is not that we lack time or ability, it's that we lack consistency. We wake up each day with good intentions but no commitment. We scroll before we supplicate, we complain before we reflect, and we rush through prayer as though it's a chore instead of the very fuel our hearts are starving for. The irony is, we look for motivation everywhere: videos, quotes, talks, but motivation fades. Discipline doesn't. Motivation might get you started, but only discipline keeps you going when the excitement dies down. When you say you're tired, ask yourself, tired of what? Tired of striving, or tired of neglecting what your soul needs most? There's a difference between exhaustion that comes from effort and exhaustion that comes from emptiness. The first strengthens you, the second drains you. When you live without spiritual order, everything becomes chaotic. Your mind becomes cluttered with regrets, your heart feels disconnected, and you begin to label that feeling as fatigue. But if you realigned your priorities, put Allah back at the center, you'd realize that what you needed wasn't rest, but renewal. The Quran reminds us that true tranquility comes through remembrance. Asterisk, verily, in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find rest. Asterisk, that is the secret. Not in more sleep, not in less responsibility, but in deeper connection. When you discipline yourself to remember Allah throughout your day in your work, in your struggles, in your silence, life feels lighter, because your energy is no longer wasted trying to please people or chase worldly validation. It's focused on what truly matters. Some people say, "But I pray, I try, and still I feel drained." And that may be true, but ask yourself, do you pray out of presence or out of habit? Do you fulfill obligations just to tick boxes, or to truly connect with the one who sustains you? Discipline is not just about doing the act, it's about doing it with sincerity. A heart that prays but doesn't connect will still feel empty. A disciplined heart, however, finds meaning even in small acts, because it's doing them for Allah's sake, not for show. When you live without structure, your nafs takes over. It convinces you that you need rest when you really need action, that you're tired when you're actually distracted. The nafs thrives in comfort. It loves procrastination, indulgence, and excuses. But your soul, your Ra was created to strive. It grows through effort, not ease. Every time you push yourself to pray when you don't feel like it, to forgive when your ego resists, to stay patient when your anger rises, you are disciplining your soul. And in that discipline lies true strength. Look at any great person in history, in faith, in purpose, they all mastered consistency. They weren't extraordinary because they were born special. They became extraordinary because they were steadfast. The same applies to your spiritual journey. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be persistent. Missed one prayer, make the next one with even more focus. Fell into sin, repent with more sincerity. Discipline is not about never falling, it's about never staying down. Allah does not expect perfection from you, but He does expect effort. He loves those who strive, even if they stumble along the way. The disciplined believer is not the one who never gets tired, but the one who keeps moving despite the tiredness. You see, discipline doesn't remove difficulty, it transforms how you handle it. It gives you clarity when your emotions try to cloud your vision. It allows you to keep walking even when you can't see the destination clearly, because you trust the one guiding you. We often think freedom is doing whatever we want, but true freedom is having control over yourself. A person without discipline is a slave to their desires, to laziness, distraction, or mood. But a disciplined person lives with purpose, not pressure. Their peace doesn't come from avoiding effort, but from knowing that every effort counts in the sight of Allah. When you wake up for Fajr despite being tired, that's not weakness, that's victory. When you bite your tongue instead of arguing, that's strength. When you choose to forgive, to pray, to try again, those are moments of triumph, even if no one sees them. If your life feels chaotic, start small. Discipline doesn't mean overhauling everything overnight. It means taking control of one thing at a time, your prayer, your time, your habits, and letting consistency rebuild your energy. You'll notice that once you start honoring structure, peace follows, because chaos drains, but discipline restores. And don't confuse rest with neglect. Rest is part of discipline too, intentional rest, not escapism. Even the prophet rested, but his rest had purpose. He rested to renew, not to run away. There's a big difference between sleeping to recover and sleeping to escape responsibility. One strengthens the body, the other weakens the soul. So when you say, "I'm tired," pause and reflect. Are you tired of the journey, or tired of wandering without direction? Because the one who walks with Allah never truly runs out of strength. Their source of energy doesn't come from caffeine or comfort, it comes from conviction. Every act of discipline draws them closer to the peace they're seeking. And when you live like that, life begins to change. The same tasks that once felt burdensome start to feel meaningful. The same routines that once felt dull become spiritual. Because you're no longer doing them to survive, you're doing them to serve. You're living not by mood, but by mission. And that mission gives you a strength the undisciplined will never know. You're not tired. You're just disconnected from the structure that once gave you power. And the moment you return to that discipline, to prayer, to purpose, to remembrance, you'll find that the exhaustion fades, because tiredness ends when the soul finds direction. And direction is found when you align your life with the will of Allah. Peace is not found in comfort, it is found in obedience. This is something many of us forget because we've been taught to chase what feels good rather than what is good for us. We think peace comes when life is easy, when our desires are fulfilled, when nothing challenges us. But the truth is far deeper. Real peace is not the absence of struggle, it's the calm that comes from knowing you are living in alignment with Allah's command. It's the kind of serenity that exists even when the world around you is loud, even when your heart is tested, because you know that you are where Allah wants you to be. There are people who have everything this world can offer: wealth, success, comfort, recognition, yet they cannot sleep peacefully at night. And there are others who have little, who face hardship every day, yet their hearts radiate a stillness that can't be bought. What's the difference between the two? It's obedience. When your heart is disciplined to submit to Allah, your external circumstances lose their power over you. You stop depending on the world for peace, because your peace comes from the one who never changes. When we talk about obedience, some people imagine restriction, as though obeying Allah means losing freedom. But obedience is not a cage, it is a compass. It's what guides you away from harm and leads you toward what nourishes your soul. The commands of Allah are not chains, they are safety ropes that keep you from falling into the emptiness of your own desires. When you follow what Allah commands: prayer, honesty, modesty, patience, gratitude, you're not limiting yourself. You're protecting your soul from chaos. Think about the moments when you feel most at ease. They're not the moments of indulgence or distraction. They're the moments when your heart feels connected to Allah. When you finish your prayer with sincerity, when you forgive someone even though it hurt, when you choose truth over temptation, that's when peace flows through you. Because in those moments, your heart and your purpose align. You're doing what you were created to do: worship Allah with presence, with love, and with trust. The undisciplined heart, on the other hand, is restless. It runs from one desire to another, one distraction to the next, searching for something that can only be found in obedience. No amount of pleasure can quiet a heart that's disconnected from its creator. You can chase success, relationships, entertainment, and still feel empty because the soul cannot be tricked. It knows where it came from, and it will not rest until it returns there. Allah says in the Quran, "Indeed, in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find rest." That verse is not just a statement, it's a promise. The more you discipline your heart to obey, the more you will taste the sweetness of that rest. Obedience is not always easy. It requires sacrifice, patience, and self-control. It means saying no to your lower desires when every part of you wants to say yes. It means choosing prayer over sleep, truth over comfort, humility over ego. But every act of obedience strengthens your heart, and every act of disobedience weakens it. The disciplined heart becomes resilient not because life gets easier, but because the heart learns to rely on Allah completely. You see, peace doesn't come from having control over everything, it comes from surrendering control to Allah. The more you try to control outcomes, the more anxious you become. But when you say, "Ya Allah, I trust you," your anxiety begins to fade. Because obedience is not just about doing what's right. It's about trusting that Allah's plan is better than your own. Sometimes, obedience means walking away from something you want. Sometimes, it means accepting a situation you can't change. And sometimes, it means staying patient when every part of you wants to give up. But in every case, obedience protects your peace. We often think peace will come when our circumstances change, when we get that job, that relationship, that success, that relief. But peace doesn't wait for change. It's something you create through your response. You can be in hardship and still be calm if your heart is obedient. You can be surrounded by chaos and still be steady if your trust in Allah is firm. This is why some people smile through trials, not because they don't feel pain, but because they know their pain has purpose. They know that every test is from Allah, and every command of His is a path toward purification. When you build your life around obedience, you'll notice that your decisions become simpler. You no longer have to wrestle with confusion because you measure everything through one question: will this please Allah? And that question removes so much noise from your life. It brings clarity, direction, and ease. When you choose obedience, you don't have to chase peace. Peace begins to chase you. But obedience requires consistency. It's not about being perfect. It's about showing up again and again, even when you fail. The heart is like a garden. If you water it daily with remembrance, prayer, and repentance, it grows strong. But if you neglect it, weeds of sin and distraction begin to take over. The disciplined heart keeps returning to Allah, even after mistakes. It doesn't say, "I've fallen too far." It says, "My Lord's mercy is greater than my fall." That humility, that desire to return, is obedience too. Many people ask, "How can I find peace in my heart?" And the answer is simple, yet powerful. Obey Allah even when it's hard. Because every command has wisdom behind it. When you pray, it's not just a ritual, it's a recalibration of your soul. When you fast, it's not just hunger, it's self-control and empathy. When you give charity, it's not loss, it's purification. When you forgive, it's not weakness, it's liberation. Every act of obedience heals a part of you that disobedience wounded. And the beauty of obedience is that it doesn't just bring peace to you, it brings peace through you. A person who lives in submission radiates calmness. Their words are gentle, their actions are balanced, their presence soothes those around them. They don't react impulsively because they know every moment is seen by Allah. Their peace is contagious because it's rooted in something divine. The undisciplined heart, however, is constantly agitated. It wants immediate results, constant attention, endless satisfaction. It's never still, never content, always chasing something it can't find. That's why obedience is not just about doing what Allah commands, it's about freeing yourself from the slavery of your own desires. You stop being pulled by what's fleeting, and you start being grounded by what's eternal. That's where peace lies, in the surrender, and that surrender doesn't make you weak. It makes you strong in a way the world can't understand. Because when you obey Allah, you are not controlled by fear or greed. You become untouchable in your faith. The storms may come, but they can't uproot you. The world may test you, but it can't break you. Because your peace doesn't come from the outside, it comes from the one who lives within your heart. When you discipline your heart to obey Allah, you stop negotiating with temptation. You stop wasting energy fighting battles you were never meant to fight. You begin to walk lighter, speak softer, and live deeper. And that is the beauty of obedience. It doesn't take away your freedom. It gives it back to you. It liberates you from dependence on people, emotions, and circumstances, and anchors you to something eternal. So if your heart feels restless, it's not because your life is difficult, it's because your heart is seeking alignment. Bring it back to Allah through obedience. Pray with presence, speak with truth, live with purpose, and you will find that peace was never far away. It was simply waiting for your surrender. True peace is not in what surrounds you, it's in how you submit to the one who surrounds everything. Growth demands pain and persistence. It's a truth we often resist, yet it is woven into the very design of life. Nothing valuable comes without effort. Nothing meaningful blossoms without struggle. We live in a world that teaches us to chase ease, to avoid discomfort, to find shortcuts to success and happiness. But the reality is, anything that grows must first endure pressure, must be tested, must be stretched beyond its comfort. And the same applies to the soul. Spiritual strength, emotional maturity, and true faith are not built in moments of ease. They are forged in the fires of trial, patience, and perseverance. When you look at nature, everything that grows does so through a process that involves breaking. A seed must split before it can sprout. The soil must be torn open for roots to take hold. The tree must endure storms before it stands firm. In the same way, your heart must go through pain before it can open fully to the light of faith. Growth without pain is an illusion. It's the discomfort that makes you stronger. It's the resistance that teaches you discipline. And it's the persistence that transforms weakness into strength. Many people say, I want to grow closer to Allah. But what they really mean is, I want to feel close to Allah without struggle. Yet closeness to Him often comes through the struggle. When He removes your comfort, it's not rejection, it's refinement. He strips away what is temporary to make space for what is eternal. You may lose people, opportunities, or moments you once thought you couldn't live without. But through those losses, Allah teaches you dependence on Him alone. Every difficulty, every heartbreak, every disappointment is a lesson in surrender. The truth is, growth hurts because it demands change, and change requires you to let go of old habits, old thoughts, old attachments, even old versions of yourself. Sometimes you have to let go of who you think you are to become who Allah wants you to be. That's not an easy process. It involves confusion, setbacks, and moments where you question everything. But those are the exact moments that build faith. Because faith is not built in comfort, it's built when you trust Allah in the dark, when you keep walking even when you can't see the road ahead. We often pray for strength, and then we're surprised when life tests us. But how else can strength be built? How can patience grow without delay? How can forgiveness grow without betrayal? How can faith deepen without uncertainty? Every test you face is an answer to a prayer you once made. When you ask Allah to strengthen you, He doesn't hand you strength, He gives you the circumstances to build it. When you ask Him to guide you, He doesn't always give clarity immediately, He gives you confusion that pushes you to seek Him more earnestly. Growth is hidden inside struggle. But most people never open that gift because they're too focused on the pain instead of the purpose. Persistence is what separates those who merely dream from those who actually transform. Growth is not a single moment of revelation. It's the accumulation of small acts of faith repeated over time. The one who wakes up every day and prays, even when tired, that's growth. The one who keeps doing good even when unappreciated, that's growth. The one who keeps asking for forgiveness, even after falling again, that's growth. It's not perfection that defines your spiritual journey. It's persistence. Allah doesn't expect you to never fall. He expects you to keep getting up. Sometimes, growth will look like isolation. You may find yourself distanced from people, opportunities, or things you once enjoyed. That's not punishment, it's preparation. When Allah removes distractions, He's making space for your development. The caterpillar doesn't understand the cocoon. It just feels confined and restricted. But inside that confinement, transformation is happening. In the same way, your periods of isolation, pain, or stillness are not wasted, they're sacred spaces where Allah is working on your soul in ways you may not yet understand. You may feel like you're standing still, but if your heart is learning patience, gratitude, or reliance, you are moving, just not visibly. Growth is often silent. You don't notice it happening until one day you react differently to something that once broke you. You forgive faster, you complain less, you trust more. That's how growth appears, not suddenly, but gradually, through the consistency of choosing faith over fear again and again. Pain also teaches humility. When everything goes smoothly, we begin to believe we are in control. We start to think we've earned our blessings, but the moment life shakes us, we remember who truly holds our fate. Growth brings you back to humility, to that state where you realize that everything you have, everything you endure, everything you overcome is only by Allah's mercy. Pain reminds you that you are dependent, and dependence on Allah is the most powerful state a believer can be in. Some people see growth as a climb, a constant upward journey, but in truth, it's a rhythm of rise and fall. There will be days when you are full of energy and purpose, and days when you feel empty and lost. That's part of it. Growth doesn't mean never struggling. It means continuing to strive even when you struggle. It means you fall into despair but still turn back to Allah. You doubt, yet you still pray. You break down, yet you still get up. Every time you do that, you're growing in ways that angels witness and record, even if no one else does. Allah loves consistency, even in small acts. The Prophet said, "The most beloved deeds to Allah are those done consistently, even if small." Why? Because persistence shapes the soul. A single act of goodness might inspire you for a moment, but repeated effort transforms your nature. When you choose to stay disciplined in faith, to keep showing up in worship, in kindness, in patience, you start to embody the very values you once only spoke about. You become more sincere, more grounded, more at peace. Growth also demands that you stop comparing your journey to others. Everyone's process is unique. The way Allah teaches you may be different from how He teaches someone else. Some people learn through ease, others through hardship. Some bloom early, others bloom late. The important thing is not the speed, but the direction. Keep facing Allah, keep moving, even if your steps are slow, because slow growth is still growth. A plant that grows slowly still breaks through the soil eventually, and its roots, though unseen, are strong and deep. When you embrace the pain of growth, you begin to see it as a sign of mercy, not cruelty. Allah doesn't allow pain without purpose. Every wound He gives is meant to heal you in a better form. Sometimes you have to be broken open for your light to shine through, and sometimes the lessons you learn in pain become the wisdom that guides someone else later. Your growth is not just for you, it becomes a source of light for others. So don't give up when life feels heavy. Don't assume that pain means you're failing. It might mean you're exactly where you need to be. Every scar is proof that you've survived something that once tried to destroy you. Every tear is proof that your heart still feels, still hopes, still believes. Growth demands pain, but it also promises renewal. The more you endure with patience, the more beautiful your transformation becomes. Because growth is not just about becoming stronger, it's about becoming softer. It's about having a heart that can bend without breaking, that can love without expecting, that can trust without seeing. That's what Allah wants from you, a heart that learns, evolves, and stays connected to Him, no matter how many storms it faces. So don't fear the pain that comes with growth. Embrace it. Walk through it with patience and faith. Because when you look back one day, you'll realize that what once broke you actually built you, and that every hardship that tried to destroy you only pushed you closer to the one who heals you. From brokenness to brilliance, that is the journey Allah takes every sincere heart through. When life shatters you, it's not the end. It's often the beginning of something far more beautiful than you could have ever imagined. We spend so much of our lives fearing loss, heartbreak, failure, and disappointment, thinking these are signs of divine displeasure. But if only we looked deeper, we'd realize that in those very moments of collapse, Allah is rebuilding us into something greater. What feels like destruction is often divine construction. Allah breaks your heart not to punish you, but to purify it. He removes what doesn't serve you so He can replace it with what brings you closer to Him. Every one of us carries wounds visible and invisible. The world teaches us to hide them, to cover them up, to act strong. But Allah doesn't ask you to hide your brokenness. He asks you to bring it to Him. Because only when you surrender that pain to Him can He heal it completely. The people of this world can only comfort you, but Allah can restore you. He can take the very pain that once crushed you and turn it into the reason you rise. Sometimes the most broken hearts carry the brightest light because they've been softened through hardship and polished through tears. There comes a point in life when you realize that Allah was never trying to break you, He was trying to awaken you. To wake you from your attachment to this world, from your dependence on people, from your illusions of control. Pain shakes you awake. It makes you question, reflect, and return. When you lose something or someone you deeply love, it feels unbearable, but it's often Allah's way of redirecting your heart toward Him. Because the truth is, the heart can only find rest when it rests with Allah. Everything else is temporary, and every attachment apart from Him will eventually disappoint you. Sometimes we say, "Why me?" Why did I have to go through this? Why did life treat me so unfairly? But if you were to look at your story from above, from the way Allah sees it, you'd realize that every heartbreak had purpose. The disappointment that made you cry pushed you to pray more sincerely. The betrayal that broke your trust taught you reliance on the one who never betrays. The failure that humiliated you cleansed your pride and humbled your heart. What looked like a curse in the moment was actually mercy in disguise. Healing under Allah's guidance is not about returning to who you were before you got hurt. It's about becoming who you were meant to be because of that hurt. When Allah allows pain, He doesn't just want you to recover. He wants you to transform. He wants you to emerge with wisdom, compassion, patience, and strength that you didn't have before. Every scar becomes a mark of divine craftsmanship, a sign that you've been shaped by His mercy. You might not understand it now, but one day you'll look back and realize that the things you thought were breaking you were actually building you. One of the most beautiful things about Allah's mercy is that He can use your very brokenness as a source of guidance for others. The same wound that made you weep can later become the wisdom that helps someone else heal. This is the brilliance that emerges from brokenness when your pain becomes purpose, when your suffering becomes service, when your story becomes a light for others who are still walking through darkness. Allah never wastes a single tear. Every emotion you've felt, every moment of despair you've endured, becomes a tool for growth, for empathy, for connection. The journey from brokenness to brilliance is not a straight line. It's filled with moments of confusion, doubt, and fear. There are days you'll feel strong, and days you'll feel shattered all over again. That's okay. Healing is not about pretending everything is fine. It's about holding on to faith even when it hurts. It's about trusting that Allah sees your silent battles, your private tears, your quiet perseverance. Sometimes, when you feel most forgotten, you are actually being prepared for something far beyond your understanding. Allah doesn't delay healing to punish you. He delays it to perfect you. When you let Allah lead, you stop fighting the process. You stop asking for shortcuts and start embracing surrender. You begin to see that every delay has wisdom, every setback has meaning, and every unanswered prayer has a reason. Because Allah's plan for your life is not about comfort, it's about completion. He wants to make you whole, not by giving you everything you want, but by giving you exactly what you need to reach your true potential. And sometimes what you need most is not ease, but endurance, not pleasure, but perspective. The brilliance that Allah brings from your brokenness is not worldly success or recognition. It's a heart that glows with faith, a soul that radiates peace no matter the chaos around it. It's a kind of light that doesn't come from knowledge alone, but from experience, from having walked through the darkness and found Allah there. That light cannot be faked or forced. It's the light of someone who has cried at night, who has begged in sujud, who has learned that Allah's mercy is vast enough to cover every mistake, every failure, every wound. And it's in that realization that true brilliance lies not in the absence of hardship, but in the ability to see Allah's mercy through it. The people who shine the brightest are not those who have had the easiest lives. They're the ones who kept their faith alive when everything around them seemed lost. They are the ones who, despite being broken, never let go of hope. Their strength doesn't come from themselves. It comes from Allah, who fills their emptiness with His light. When Allah heals a heart, He doesn't just patch it up, He recreates it. He gives it depth, softness, and clarity. You begin to love differently, live differently, and see differently. The world no longer controls your peace because your peace is anchored in the eternal. You stop chasing validation from others because you realize the only approval that matters is His. You no longer fear loss because you've experienced the reality that nothing you lose for Allah is ever truly lost. And that's the turning point when you stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start saying, "Alhamdulillah for what it taught me." Gratitude transforms your pain into purpose. It turns your scars into symbols of survival. You begin to see that every test was a message, every delay a mercy, and every difficulty a door to a deeper connection with your Creator. This is what brilliance truly means, not perfection, but illumination born from struggle. So when you find yourself broken, don't hide from Allah, don't run away from Him, run asterisk to asterisk Him. Pour your heart out, tell Him what you can't tell anyone else. Let your tears be your dua, your silence be your surrender. Allah never rejects a broken heart that turns toward Him. In fact, the closer you are to breaking, the closer you are to being rebuilt. Because Allah promises in the Quran, asterisk, indeed, with hardship comes ease. Asterisk, not after hardship, asterisk with asterisk it. That means that even in your pain, ease is already being written. You just have to trust that the author of your story knows exactly what he's doing. The journey from brokenness to brilliance is not about escaping pain, but about finding purpose within it. It's about letting Allah transform your weakness into wisdom, your despair into devotion, your wounds into worship. So when life shatters your plans, remember, maybe Allah is not breaking your heart, maybe He's rebuilding your faith. And the moment you let Him lead, that's when your true healing begins, and your light begins to shine brighter than ever before. Because every soul that has surrendered its pain to Allah eventually becomes a reflection of His mercy, radiant, resilient, and beautifully whole.